Welcome to Sac Taff. And hopefully I've sorted everything out today and it won't be in two parts. It should be able to sell right through. So last week I shared a little bit. I got up to chapter 4 of A Sacrifice of a Lifetime. And there have been times where I've basically run ahead and shared certain things that have taken place without actually reading the book, because sometimes I haven't had the book with me. Today, what will happen is I'll go in. It will allow me to sort of like go into more detail of certain things that I shared, which I tried to clarify, and hopefully you sort of understood what I was saying. But I've actually got the book and the part where Rebecca's sort of experiencing certain dreams, and the dreams are coming into reality. And I was trying to sort of explain to you the situation. I think I clarified it okay, but there's a little bit more depth here as well, and it sort of takes you further on to after, because she's being excluded or suspended from her college, and so she's allowed, well, she's obviously can't go to the college for a few days, and then I'll sort of take you further up. It will lead you on to either the middle or to the end of chapter 5, and that is the first part of A Sacrifice of a Lifetime, and that's like absolutely fantastic. So Rebecca's situation was ironic. Although suspended from college, she was earning a salary and gaining valuable work experience for her future, because her father had a hardware store. Normally at the weekend, on a Saturday, she would help her dad in the shop or in the holidays. But because now she was suspended, he basically allowed her to go and help her out in the shop. So like many teenagers, she was highly fashion conscious, and working for her father gave her money and the opportunity to vary her wardrobe artistically without having to consult her mother. It was not long, however, before she began to think about the history of her educational life, and it began to dawn on her that she had very little to show for it. In fact, she began to look at herself with low self-esteem, allowing for the fact that she was a friendly and pleasant-looking human being with serious thoughts and feelings. She felt so disadvantaged at not having the regular company of her friends at college. However, Rebecca was not that person to feel sorry for herself for very long, and her delightful personality and character meant that she usually appeared happy in public. She was at home in front of the TV. She was at home in the front room, seated in one of the comfortable chairs, a record playing in the background. She found herself gazing at the wall, happy and peaceful. She began to think about the feeling of freedom and space she experienced whenever her college day was over. As soon as she was outside the college gate, she used to run along the road towards the station with a speed that expressed the excitement she felt once the school day was over, and it was now time to go home. Only when she was halfway towards the station did she slow down to a walking pace. Back home, she would unwind by getting changed and listening to some music before doing her homework. And she would then have her evening meal with the rest of the family, after which she used to relax for an hour or so. She liked to retire early to bed to give her 7 to 8 hours, for she enjoyed her sleep. Which was the equivalent of a nutritional meal for her mind. Many of the problems she faced were resolved through her dreams, for in her bed she felt warm and at peace with herself, and she usually awoke feeling revitalized, looking and feeling refreshed. Rebecca looked on her bed as one of her 5 great comforts. The others were her family, her home, her good ear for music, and the spiritual side of her life. She had a Christian background, so she valued that. This was very important to her. Without it, she would never have inner peace. So for a long time, Rebecca had been aware that she was seeing part of her future within her dreams. There were other occasions when she would visualize certain instances that she came to learn were related to her future. It was not easy for her to accept, however, she was developing some sort of a sixth sense. In fact, from the age of 3, she had been aware of certain mystic events in her life where she would feel the warmth and friendliness of the atmosphere around her, especially when she played in her parents' garden, in particular places where she was surrounded by nature and its creativity. At such times, she always felt secure, as if she was being watched by friendly eyes. And this paragraph here, I didn't realise I included it. I thought I would have included this part earlier on. And I've always reflected on this paragraph that I've just read you many times throughout my adulthood. I've always reflected upon that peaceful feeling that I felt growing up as a child playing in my parents' garden. I've always reflected upon it, and I've shared it a few times. And it's actually relevant. It became more relevant a few years ago, to the point that I'm actually going to expand upon this paragraph, but include it in another book, because it's relevant to something that happened a few years ago. Yeah. So, and at the age of 7, an incident took place in the playground. It was a hot summer day at lunchtime when she left the playground to go back into her school to use the lavatory. As she opened the door, she suddenly felt as though the sky was smiling down at her, and I've always remembered that as well. Where are we now? Yeah, giving her strength and giving her strength through love and comfort. This was why she enjoyed her solitude, because she felt that she was never alone. So basically, I remember one time I was in the playground, and I can see it to this day, walking towards the annex, and it had this thick green door, pulling the door open, and it was a beautiful sunny day, warm or hot sunny day, and the sky was blue. It was blue, and beautiful blue colour. And I just remember looking up, and it did actually feel like something was smiling down at me from the sky. It was just this wonderful, wonderful feeling. Now I've lost my place here. Where am I now? Yeah, so I've always remembered that as well. It inspired her and gave her a special insight whenever she felt terrorised by an unfriendly atmosphere. She hoped that one day she would feel equally secure in company and be comfortable as part of a crowd, because she felt at that age that she didn't really fit in. And I feel as though probably at that age she was waiting for the day where she would fit in. You know, she was waiting for that day where she would fit in. And did that day come? Did it? Did that day come? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so within time, Rebecca began to realise that she was having prophetic dreams, although she questioned the facts and looked for proof that she was developing a psychic ability. On more than one occasion, for example, she would dream that she was walking towards the college, and she would always be very conscious of what she was wearing, and she would know that some challenging event was about to take place, which in her dream she would always overcome. So a few days later, she would find herself in a situation exactly as depicted in her dream, and dressed in exactly the same clothes. So some difficulty would arise at college, and the fact that she had triumphed over something similar in her dream would enable her to get through the real situation. In this way, she would be able to gain control over whatever obstacle was in her way. Her understanding of what her dreams meant forewarned that some difficulty might come her way and prepared her to deal with it. So one Friday before her suspension, Rebecca decided that she would not go to Haley and Natasha to the college disco. Remember me sharing this with you? Yeah. So although many of the students were looking forward to exciting, let me say that again. Although many of the students were looking forward excitedly to the evening, it goes on and so on and so forth. They were talking about what they were going to wear. Rebecca listened to their conversation without a twinge of jealousy. I like the way I've written that. I do like the way I've written it. That night, just the fact that she wasn't jealous about the fact that they were excited to go to the college disco. She just wasn't. She just basically, one, didn't really want to be part of it and just valued her time away from the college. She was quite content with that. And then it's got here, that night she had a dream. She dreamt that Hayley was in Trevor's car alone with him, kissing and cuddling him passionately. Now, this was an improbable scenario because Trevor had a girlfriend called Justine, a pretty blonde with smooth pink cheeks. He was one of the older students at the college and was retaking previous examinations. Very masculine, tall, sturdy and robust, and he was in his early 20s. Definitely a man and not a boy. So Justine, who must have been at least 18 and perhaps a year or two older. I think she must have been a year or two older, but anyway, was very small in comparison, but the way the couple behaved in public made it obvious that they were an item. So on Saturday morning, Rebecca placed a significant. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me start again. On Saturday morning, Rebecca placed no significance on what she had dreamt. She spent all day working in the hardware shop, and in the evening she relaxed in a long soothing bath before listening to her favourite show on the radio. So Sunday also turned out to be an enjoyable day. She went to church with her mother and her father, and of course was already there. Her father was, of course, already there as a church warden, and she then bought the Sunday paper, some confectionery, as she usually did after the service. So she's got a routine going there for Sunday. So going to church on Sunday morning was part of a routine for Rebecca and her parents, and it just goes to show, after church she would unwind and listen to some music. And then on Sunday afternoon, she would do whatever homework she had been given to her over the weekend. And then she would sort out her clothing for the week and so on and so forth. And she would usually join the family in the living room to watch television. However, the highlight of every weekend was music. From the age of 15, Rebecca had wanted to be a disc jockey. So every Monday lunchtime, she would head towards the high street and in the particular record shop that catered for her taste. The sounds of soul, funk and hip-hop music brightened her life and brought her great pleasure for many hours on end. And she would buy 3 records, 2 of which were the latest sounds and the third a record from the past. So she liked to sort of like have some records from the past and present, and some records from the present, which is clever. Building up a good collection that would stand her in good stead in her career as a disc jockey. On Monday afternoon, after her dream about Hayley and Trevor, she returned. Well, basically, she's back at college. It just sounds like she had a dream in the afternoon. She had the dream before. But on Monday afternoon, she returned to college after a visit to the record shop, feeling refreshed and vibrant. Almost the first person she saw was Hayley, looking rosier and more relaxed than usual. "Hi, Hayley," she asked, or she said should be. "How did the disco go?" "It was okay." Rebecca barely had time to put her new records in her locker before the bell rang. Grabbing the books she required for the afternoon lesson, she rushed into the study room where Hayley and Natasha were already seated. Almost before she knew what she was saying, she turned to Hayley and asked her point blank, "So what did you and Trevor get up to on Friday night?" The words came out quite casually, but they had an extraordinary effect on Hayley. "Who told you?" she asked with a surprised, suspicious look on her face and in a voice that betrayed shock and embarrassment. "Nobody. I just know that the two of you. Rebecca stopped and refused to say anything more. She smiled at Hayley. It was at that precise moment that Rebecca had proof of her psychic ability. It became obvious that her dreams were part of her reality. So there you go. Yeah, so that's sort of the situation that would happen. And nothing more was said about Hayley's secret. Rebecca also kept the knowledge of her ability to herself. And So to Rebecca, the ability to dream part of the future seemed a special gift. It was the one thing that could protect her and warn her of danger and any emotional upset that was about to come her way. Realistically, it wasn't the one thing. It wasn't the one thing, but that's how she's feeling at the time. She's feeling content with the fact that she's dreaming dreams, and they're basically predicting what's going to happen in the future. And because she's overcoming the dreams, she's overcoming in the dreams when she's when the actual event takes place, she knows that she's going to overcome it. So she sort of had that confidence of overcoming, knowing that she was going to overcome. But, you know, I don't want it to look as though that's what she felt was protecting her. She felt protected, but I feel as though that there's more to it than, you know, that. There's more to it than that. The fact that they were taking their time to decide. Hang on a minute. So it even gave her confidence when she was suspended from college. The fact that they were taking their time to decide whether to readmit her did not worry her. One evening, not long after she had been suspended, she dreamt that the college would accept her back. So she knew she was going to be accepted back. This is quite a big thing, really, isn't it? I mean, you know, it's very, very encouraging. So within a week, her parents received a letter agreeing to resignate her, provided she was put under the care of a psychiatrist. Mr. Barrack, who was unhappy. I always remember him saying that. I always remember his expression and saying that, you know, he knew his daughter didn't need a psychiatrist. So Mr. Barrack, who was unhappy with the implication that there was something wrong with his daughter's mental health and decided to ignore the reference to psychiatry, he felt that he had a better understanding of his child than a psychiatrist. And of course, it was his daughter's interest. It was in his daughter's interest that she was allowed to continue her education. And Rebecca returned to the college with a better and brighter attitude. She knew that the only option she had was to make her college life work for her, finish off the rest of the year, and then complete the final year and take her examinations. Then all would be well, and she would be free. That's how she felt. Actually, free, really? Yeah, and that's how she felt. And it's a positive way of looking at it. You know, she's gone through all these different things and come up with a conclusion that this is all she needs to do now. All she needs to do, and it's not long before. I think, but what she meant was she's going to be free. She won't have to, you know, continue her education because she clearly didn't want to, you know, because of everything that she's going through and so on and so forth. And it was like, yeah, no more college. Yeah, so on her first day back, Rebecca left the train station with feelings of optimism. With a bounce in her stride, she had bought herself a new leather jacket with the money she had earned through working in her father's shop. I even remember what the jacket looked like, sort of, anyway. That makes sense, doesn't it? This helped her confidence. She was greeted by Mr. Walsh as she entered the classroom and walked towards her seat under the gaze of other students. Nothing was said about her suspension. It was all a case of greetings and friendly smiles. When the bell went and the students rose from their seats to go to their first lesson of the day in another room, Mr. Walsh called out after her, "Rebecca, can I have a word with you?" "Why did you say all those things in your letter?" he asked in a caring voice. Rebecca hesitated because she did not know what to say, but eventually she replied, "Sometimes people can be pretty observant, and for some reason they know what is going on." She did not dare to look at him straight in the eyes as she spoke. Instead, she looked at the wall. Sounds like I'm talking in riddles, though, doesn't it? Plucking up courage and looking at him more directly, she tried to explain. But when they're confronted with the issue, they deny any particular instance which relate to them. Look at this. "I wish you wouldn't talk in riddles," he said, then quickly changing the subject. "So what have you been doing with yourself?" I've been working in my father's hardware store." Mr. Walsh was surprised because he was not aware that Mr. Barrack, who owned a shop, she could tell that he was observing her smart leather jacket, and then his eyes adjusted to the rest of her clothing. They seemed to be telling her that she was far more intelligent than she had sometimes appeared. "Okay, you can go to your class." And you know what it is? That was the time that Mr. Wall, that was the time that he could have said, he could have responded to what she was trying to say. And he could have admitted the fact that, yeah, what happened did happen. You know, Mr. So-and-so did look in his direction and then have a smile in his face and then look at me. And I'm sorry that you felt that way. You know, we weren't, you know, making fun of you. That was the time that he could have explained it, but he did it. He just brushed it, you know, didn't bother to sort of mention anything about it. Maybe he just wanted to make it feel as though it was in her imagination or something, you know, didn't want to admit the fact that she'd seen this, and he didn't want to admit what that might have meant or something like that, you know. Yeah, so what have I written here? It was in fact a geography class with Mrs. Kane. Okay, she was a small lady with short wavy hair. Everything about her, from her appearance to her dull clothes, which blended it so well with the beige and brown monotony of the classroom, declared that she was similar to a typical housewife. What am I writing here? That's not a very good sentence to write, especially in this day and age, is it? A typical housewife. As soon as the students had settled down, her first action was to greet Rebecca. Rebecca did not take this as a sign of friendliness. She hated the idea that she'd been singled out, and she detected a sarcastic note in the teacher's voice. Second time that's happened, because the first time was in the convent school. You know, I've shared about that. It's sort of similar anyway. Mrs. Kane seemed to be drawing attention to her as a disruptive influence, whose bad behaviour in the past was due to her seeking extra attention. She was both astonished and dismayed by the fact that Mrs. Kane so obviously misunderstood her. No way did she want extra attention. That's the last thing she wanted. So I don't understand where she got that type of understanding from. I really don't understand that. Despite her renewed confidence, Rebecca was still subject to feelings of insecurity and anxiety. I don't remember feeling anxious. I remember feeling insecure. The word anxiety, I don't think that's the right word to use. I remember feeling insecure but not anxious. But the rest of the time proceeded in a smooth manner, enabling her to adjust and settle down. She knew exactly what she wanted to do in the 6 weeks of the summer holiday. Okay, so we got to the 6 weeks already. Yeah, so the family were going away during the 1st and 3rd week of August. The rest of the time would be spent working in her father's shop. But one fairly regular activity was to visit the Pineapple Centre with Kim. And then again, I've shared about Kim, how she was a friend that she met. Let me see. Rebecca's long-standing friendship with Kim had blossomed. Okay. Oh, I thought it was a friend from another school. No, okay. Blossomed, and Kim had persuaded her parents to let her join. Okay, I remember now. Kim was the friend that she met at the convent school, and they used to go to the Pineapple Centre, and now Kim had persuaded her parents to let her come to the college. I don't remember that. Okay. To join Rebecca at Stanford College for the autumn term. Kim would usually arrive at Rebecca's home at about 5:30 on Friday evenings. Her interest in dancing had never waned, and she still planned to become a dance teacher when she left college. Rebecca, however, doubted whether Kim had the ability to be a professional dancer. In her opinion, her friend did not have the experience or confidence to perform successfully in a professional dance group, and she might never achieve her ambition. She sensibly kept her thoughts to herself and let Kim continue to dream, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, so it was during that year's summer holiday things began to change. Rebecca's thinking began to change. Probably hormones, not probably, the hormones were setting in now, and now, you know, Rebecca's now thinking differently as regards to, you know, relationships, and maybe sort of beginning to become interested in maybe having a boyfriend or something like that. So it was during the year's summer holiday that Rebecca began to experience strange new physical feelings. Um, yeah, so she enjoyed reading and belonged to a local library, which she visited frequently to borrow novels, and she loved romantic stories with elements of ambition and intrigue. So she took one book with her on holiday, which had a number of exciting love scenes, and she found this highly interesting and strangely affecting. This book needs to be edited, okay? you know, um, yeah. So basically, I'm gonna leave you. If you want to read the book, you read this section. I don't want to read all of this out. But she's reading these books, and now certain things have been highlighted, and she's now sort of starting to sort of think in that manner as regards to romance and love and so on and so forth. um yeah, I'm just reading it because I just don't want to read too much, because now this is the section where people start getting self-righteous, because I've written certain things here and it's like, you read it. If you want to read it, read the book. People start getting self-righteous, certain things that I've written about, and it's the beginning of it, where people start getting self-righteous as if they didn't have any feelings like this, or as if they didn't experience certain things like this, as if they've never read a book similar to like this, as if they've never seen a film worse than certain things that I've written, you know. And so basically she's now, it's beginning to sort of like I say, get interested in sort of love and romance, and certain things like that. um what else? Yeah, okay. And there's a situation where okay, I'm not gonna read it. All I've read at the end bit I've put, that was the summer when Rebecca was beginning to become aware of her sexuality. That's all I'm going to read, because like I said, there's certain sections I'm going to read from the book, and certain sections I want if you want to read it, this is the first part, and it will be out soon, and you can read it for yourself. And I've written certain things here, and it's like, I'm being open and honest. And when some people read that, and this is only the beginning of it, that's when you begin to realize that people are so self-righteous. Or either they're not being honest about how they felt at that age, and at that age now, I must be now about I must have been about 15 and a half, coming on to 16. I would say 15 and a half. I think I'm still 15 and a half, to be nice. And either that or they're dishonest. And I've just written the book because that's why it's called The Sacrifice of a Lifetime, because I'm sharing, and there's a particular reason why I'm sharing. And as we move on further in the book, you'll get it. And I'm only going to share certain things and sort of talk around it. But if you want to read it in full detail, like I say, the book will be out soon, and I'll probably start by bringing out the first part first, and then I might bring out the second and third part, and then eventually put the whole book together. I have to see how it's gonna go, but I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I'm actually pleased that I've written the book. It doesn't matter. Some people have sort of said certain things about the book, but as I've read it, I'm actually really pleased that I've written it. There's certain details in the book that I've forgotten. So I'm glad that I wrote it when I wrote it, when it was still fresh. I'm glad that I wrote it when it was still fresh. I really am glad that I've written it. And I was sharing with somebody recently that, I'm doing a podcast. And it's, oh, really? And I said, it's about my very first book, because when I brought the first book out, certain people couldn't fully understand why I wrote the book. And so they became quite, I didn't use these words, but self-righteous and judgmental. So I've written the book. I'm doing the podcast so I can share about the book and talk about issues in the book in more detail for people to understand. And then he said that people are always going to have things to say about it, or people always have, will always disagree or always have a comment to say, which is true. I'm not writing the book to justify myself. I'm not writing the book. I'm writing the book to, I don't feel I need to justify myself, but I'm writing the book to explain more in detail about the book so you understand more. I don't think you'll understand fully. You'll understand more about why, you might do, why I wrote the book. So that if people do want to say stuff, you can say stuff about it. You can say stuff about it. You can. I mean, we all have the right to our own opinions, don't we? But I'm just writing. I'm just doing the podcast because I feel I need to. Because I don't want to do YouTube where with Taffy Howe where I'm talking about, with YouTube I started talking about the book, all right, and then I only got to a certain point, and then I diverted to talking about my journey as an author and the people that I'm meeting and this and that, what have you. I've only sort of shared so much about the book about Taffy Howe, and I feel that was enough. If people want to read it, they can read it. And eventually, maybe, because a lot of people have asked me for part 2. Maybe I think I'm going to have more to talk about part 2 more than will have about the first part. So maybe I might do a podcast on Taffy Howe when I do the next section, because the next section is there's a lot of depth to the next section. I'm not saying there's not a lot of depth to the first part, but there's a lot to talk about if I finish. If I think part 2 is going to be about what I think it's going to be about, then there's a lot more discussion as we got that can go into that as well. So I maybe do a podcast. That's why the podcast is called Sac Taff, so I can talk about either. And sometimes they relate. Because it's a psychological thing. Most of the genre is to do with psychological issues and so on and so forth. So not everybody, obviously, it's like, if you read a book, not everybody's going to like the book. So certain people will like it, certain people really like it, certain people won't like it, So, but I just felt that I have a need, it's important for me to do the podcast. Who knows, eventually I might have guests, to come in and talk about certain issues. How did you feel when you were growing up, or so on and so forth? How did and all of this sort of stuff, Eventually, I might eventually start looking for people who I feel, would be ideal to come and talk about their childhood and what they experienced, how they came up, because I feel it's important that we share and that other people know how, certain things can be dealt with as regards to, bullying and in school. It could be not only in school, in the workplace and this and that. There's a lot that, I can involve in the podcast, but this is like me. It's not an introduction because I've been doing this for a few months, but I'm slowly sort of getting into it. It took me time to get into reading A Sacrifice of a Lifetime because I knew there was going to be a time where I'm going to have to get more personal. Yeah, that's why it's called A Sacrifice of a Lifetime, because it's personal. It's not the sacrifice. It's a sacrifice for me because I'm sharing about my personal life. And then when you share about your personal life, you're putting yourself in a position, it's delicate, where people, will be able to, pick at this and pick at that and be self-righteous. Oh, that didn't happen to me. I've had it before. Oh, that didn't happen to me. Do you know what I mean? Well, it happened to me. I'm here sharing about it because I've overcome it. I've learned from it and I want to share. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's not. Yeah, so there you go. So I've basically finished. I can't believe it. I've got to the first 5 chapters of A Sacrifice of a Lifetime. I need to get the computer out and start typing up and it would be great to bring the first part out, and I'm really looking forward to it. You know, uh, feel free to share the video if you would like. That all helps. Or put a thumbs up. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think about what I'm sharing. Do you think you'd like to read the book? I'm just laughing because I can see someone saying no. No. Do you think you would like to read the book? Yeah, so basically, if you want to look up my socials, I'm on Instagram, Roslyn1325. My Facebook is Roslyn Roberts. My X is at underscore, if I can remember it, is it? Hang on a minute, is it? At underscore author R Roberts or something like that. Do type it in, it will come up. Um, my YouTube's Welcome Roslyn Roberts. And yes, I hope you're enjoying what I've shared with you today. But in the meantime, take care and speak to you soon. Bye bye.